Hello, this is Pinchon, never off the boat, and the Christmas tree is looking nice. All right, listen, it was a hassle to put this up. First of all, I was a bit annoying by this. It took forever to keep it straight up like this vertically. I didn't know how to put it in right in the mid of the bottom hold, the little holder at the bottom of it, and then screw all three screws from different angles, making tiny adjustment to make it stand straight and not wiggle all over the place. It was quite a challenge, but look at the final result. Super pretty. Alexandra did all the work of putting up the lights and small pieces of decorations, and it's looking super pretty. I like it. Besides this, on the wall over there, above the sofa, there's a lot of paper folded decorations that resembled like flowers of red and creamy colors. I can't really show you, but you know what? I can't really show you right now. I don't want to move the camera setup. But yeah, the whole room is looking super Christmassy. Right now it's mid of December, and Christmas is coming up. Even though I wasn't really raised in an environment where Christmas was celebrated, but I can appreciate the nice gesture and well of kindness and all this like spirit of sharing. I like it. Plus, the room right now smells like a pine forest. I'm not complaining about that because, to be honest, most of the time this room smells either like me farting or I don't know, roasted chicken wings, which I do quite often. It's a delicacy that you can easily cook yourself if you have an oven. Most of the time, I use the oven either for sweet potato, or chicken wings, and they get the whole room smells kind of like that, a mixture of potato, sweet potato, and chicken wings. I mean, not complaining, but that's a fresh change. Pine forest really smells tremendously better than roasted chicken wings, to tell you the truth. But yeah, today I'm not gonna talk more about Christmas, but instead I'm gonna tell you something about Taiwan, or specifically Taiwanese people. Hold your horses. I know everybody have an opinion. All right, I have my opinion. Hold your horses. Give me a second. I know this is tricky. And I promised, right, from the start of this podcast, I have repeatedly promised I'm not going to touch politics. But this is not a politics. This is not politics. I'm not going to talk about the situation of Taiwan and all that. It's none of my business. No. But I am going to talk about my personal encounter with a few people who are Taiwanese, people of Taiwan. I don't have a lot of exposure to them, but there's a few occasions in my life that I came across a few of them, so I want to talk about it. You know, I think it might be interesting. And plus, I just want to remember it, record it, put it in the record, and so in the old age when I'm forgetting stuff, I can look back into this and be like, oh, I now I remember, right? So just to give a fair amount of context, and for your information, I guess I am Chinese. I was born and raised in China, in the city called Nanjing, in Jiangsu province, in mainland China. Both my parents and my parents' parents are all from that place, as far as I'm concerned, right? My mom's side is from the north, my father's side is from the south, around the area of Nanjing, and they met in Nanjing, and they got married there, and they got me. Okay? So if I'm ever going to do one of those DNA tests, I assume it's got to come back 100% Chinese. I can't be more Chinese. And yeah, even though I haven't been back home for a decade now, almost exactly a decade, fingers crossed, I'm gonna make many more. Um, I still identify strongly as Chinese. I don't feel like anything else but Chinese. So that's a personal exposition, I guess. Um, a little bit of context for the story I'm about to tell. And yeah, if you want to know anything about Taiwan or how the whole shenanigan about around the geopolitics in that area in East Asia, you can go easily Google it up, and that depends on the sources that you have, or depends on what angle you take, or what kind of a positionality you wanna assume. You gotta come to your own opinion, and you're free to do so. And I'm not here to discuss that with you, but I want to tell you some story about the people I have met. Is the whole idea comes from just during the weekend. I was just contemplating something about the book that I was writing, and I don't know, came out of nowhere. I remembered um, two Taiwanese people I met during my young age, before I even turned 10. And I told Alexandra, my girlfriend, about this, and I guess I want to share that with you as well. And then as I was thinking about today's podcast, I realized I have actually encountered more Taiwanese than I thought. There is actually quite a handful of them, not only those two, but those two definitely were the first one that, as far as my memory can serves me well, those two were definitely the OG, the beginning of my encounter with Taiwanese people. So yeah, let's dig into it. So back in 2007, 2000, excuse me, 1997, 1998, maybe 2000, early 2000. I can't remember very clearly, but it was a time before I turned 10. I was in elementary school, and during that time, during that time, I remember Hong Kong was already reunited with mainland China. It was given back by the British Empire after they rented the place for 99 years. The colony was finally officially a part of China. The transition was done. And meanwhile, in mainland China, a lot was happening. There was a lot of privatization of companies, of more lively kind of economic environment that resembled more about capitalism, industrial kind of activities, I guess. So a lot of people left their jobs, their secure jobs with the government, with all this corporate places that was kind of like organized by the government. They call it the national corporations and national companies. A lot of people left because they were just not motivated to do work. It was economically not economically, those giant state-owned company were not performing well because people were not stimulated, incentivized to do more, as they had a fixed salary and productivity were low. But after, I think it was right around that time in the early 2000s or the end of 1990s, a lot of people started having their own business. It was allowed. It was a tremendous time. People were starting small business, big business on their own. Um, I think my parents were still working for a state-owned company at that time, but they were tempted. However, they were not courageous. Think like this: since 1949, it was a largely communist country with a lot of like socialist structures, economic structures that prohibit you from doing anything on your own, especially economic activities. So you were inside of the system that you were told to do this and that, and no matter how good or bad you do it, you're going to give according remunerations, and basically, as long as you're functioning individual, economically speaking, you are taken care of. You don't have to worry about your livelihood. Well, even though it was never a good livelihood, they were poor. They were poor. They were not getting enough payment because there was just not, the whole organization of socialism didn't fit the status quo at that time. I would say if China or like Norway was a small population and a tremendous natural gas or oil reserve, and then they can distribute wealth through this within this small demographic, maybe it would work. Maybe socialism would work in China at that point, but it didn't. So this great man, the great leader of Deng Xiaoping, decided it was time to open up. So from the 1978 or 1980s or somewhere in the early 80s, the country started to adopt capitalistic ideas, modeling after Singapore, actually, another very ethnically speaking Chinese dominant small nation that was doing tremendously well in the 1980s, economically speaking. So after 10 years of experiment, 20 years of experiment, the country was going through a lot of things economically speaking. And that was just the time that when I was going to elementary school was another wave of people leaving the system, so to speak, leaving the structure, leaving the state-owned properties and corporates, and then starting their own venture into this more free and more competitive and more capitalistic kind of personal endeavors towards wealth and personal economic well-being, financial well-being. During that times, foreign policy has changed as well. Before that, Taiwan and China were kind of de facto not talking to each other, like both on like a national level and on a civilian level. Yeah, at least like that was kind of like the impression I was left with, even though there might be a lot going on. But for us, like normal people, I never heard about anybody visiting from Taiwan. I have never seen them around. But it was precisely at that time, at the turn of the century, by we I mean me, my parents, and our extended families, we had our first Taiwanese visitors to our not so rural, not so urban, kind of a shitty part of Nanjing in Jiangsu province in mainland China. 2 people. And it turned out they were our relatives. So my grandma have 5 kids, and my mom was the smallest sister, right? And the mom and my dad had me. My grandma had a elder brother, and the elder brother was serving the military for the Republic of China, ROC, who fled to Taiwan after the Civil War, after a loss in Civil War, and established a new country, ROC, over there in the island of Taiwan, and it's called ROC, so in the bracket, Taiwan. That's their official name, and they sustain until today. A lot of the military personnel and their relatives and families followed this military retreat to the island of Taiwan back in 2045, 1945. After the defeat in the mainland, a lot have fled, and included was my grandma's elder brother. At that time, he already had a family in Nanjing, right next to the house, not too far away from my grandma's house. And he had a wife. He had two kids, one boy, and I believe another one is a girl. No, actually 2 boys. They had 2 boys. One boy was mentally challenged, and another one was perfect. So what happened was this elder brother of my grandma. Should I call him granduncle? Let's call him granduncle. I'm not really sure about the genealogy, but granduncle sounds fair. Okay. So this granduncle went to Taiwan with the military, but he couldn't take all the relatives with him, because back then it was kind of a limited capacity that was allowed to each individual, and I'm pretty sure he wasn't really higher ranked in the system of the military back in the ROC. So what happened was he was probably only allowed to take 1 or 2 or I don't know. It was a rush of time, and he only took the son. He didn't take the wife. He didn't take the mentally challenged kid, but he took another um, physically capable, fully capable, and mentally capable son with him. And the arrangement, at least that's the arrangement that I heard from my mom. The arrangement was they will go to Taiwan, and when the time was right, they were going to send back some sort of a transportation for for the who is that, for the wife and the kid, right? So two left behind. For the left behind one, they will send transportation, or they arrange transportation. Somehow they expect that they weren't going to be a permanent situation. There were going to be an end of the Civil War, and there were going to be soon a reunification of the mainland and Taiwan. So that's the expectation, and I guess somehow they didn't think that the family need to all rush there because they were worried while they were gone, the property were probably going to be taken over by somebody else or lost in some kind of a transition time, and they were lost. They would lost monetarily or financially, right? They still had this property, the house they were living in to take care of, so they didn't want everybody to leave. And they didn't foresee that for many decades to come, they wouldn't have communication whatsoever. And that happened to turn out to be the case. Once Taiwan, ROC, went to the small island, uh, China was constituted by constituted. That's a weird word. The Communist China was established, right? People's Republic of China was established, and for many, 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 many years, there were a limited means to have communication. They were not in good terms on the border areas, like on Fujian, which is a province that was right facing the Strait of Taiwan, facing the island, and on the side of Taiwan that was facing the mainland. They were bombing each other. There was a lot of like fire going on, and it wasn't in good terms. People were claiming from Taiwan side they're going to come back and take over China. There were actually mobilization that was aiming towards that, but obviously didn't end up well. Didn't end up anywhere, to be honest. But well, meanwhile, China side claimed to take over. Mainland China side declared to take over Taiwan in no time, but that didn't come into a fruition either. So until nowadays, nobody's taking over whom. Still there's ROC over there, Republic of China, bracket Taiwan, and there's PRC, People's Republic of China, over here on the other side of the strait. And they lost contact. So this, excuse me. So this grand uncle of mine had a new family, over there, started a new family, had a new wife, had a few daughters and sons and whatever. I don't really know. But one of the daughter came back at the time when I was in elementary school. And that's the first Taiwanese people I met. I guess, how would I call it? Aunt? Some extended aunt of mine came back from Taiwan with her husband. And her husband, ironically, or maybe not so much, ironically, was serving the military as well. So they were both retired when they returned home. I think they were at the age of 60. The woman, my aunt, I guess extended aunt, was probably a little bit older. Was probably a little bit younger in her late 50s. But the guy was a little bit older as well. Was a little bit older, maybe already retired, because I remember they said it will be easier for them to come to China and visit if they weren't actively, involved in the military anymore. So they came back around that time. They already had communication going on with the family that were left behind by my granduncle, aka the mentally challenged kid, the brother of theirs, and I guess stepmother of theirs. But the stepmother died before they could visit, and left behind only was mentally challenged. I guess my uncle, extended uncle of mine, and the uncle was taken care of by the surrounding neighbors primarily. It wasn't taken care of by anybody that was in my, I guess, branch of the family, because my grandma was already old, and she was not fractured her hip bone yet, and she was still able to walk around, but she was not really able to take care of another person who's at mentally not stable. But luckily, the neighbor was taking care of him voluntarily, so he could manage. There was not, listen, there was not a facility, or at least not there not enough capacity in those facilities, a mental facility, to take care of my this uncle, this mentally challenged uncle of mine. So he was living in their family house all by himself, never married, never had any kids. But the relatives, the neighbors, were good enough. They were goodwill people, and they took care of him. Like, they did grocery. They were helping him out whenever he needs something. If there was a leak in the pipe, some tiles on the ceiling need to be changed. They were doing it, right. So very, very good people. But I guess one of the reason that the relatives came back, my aunt, his Taiwanese aunt, and her husband came back, was because they want to really check out the situation, and it was one of the potential. I think they would want to help out a little bit more with this brother of theirs, I guess, in some way, half brother at least, right? Because they have the same father. So that was one of the intention, but also on the side note, no. Besides that, they also want to check out the place where their dad is from. That's at least a speculation that my mom had, and a speculation I kind of agree on. Why wouldn't they? If I were born outside of China and I know my parents were originally from China, I would definitely want to check out the ancestral land sooner or later, right? Don't you have the curiosity? I think it's pretty natural. If I had to go, that's my rice cooker. It's ready. Gotta hurry up. Um, so yeah, I think it's quite natural to have that urge of discovering your ancestral land, and find out more about where your parents are from. And I think naturally they did that as well, as a part of the reason, I think, why they came to visit. And back then we were very poor. Like, by we, I mean me and my family. Like, I remember that was a time by the end of every month, because a payment, the state-owned company only pay my parents by the end of the month. I think it was either at the very end of it, or at least the start of the last week of the month. And there was only monthly payment, unlike in the state or some other places. I heard there's like a bi-weekly payment. So every two weeks you will get a payment for your service and labor. But not in China. In China, at least at that time, it was a monthly payment. And my parents really struggled. I never really felt it, but I did notice that by the end of the month, our dietary choice would really shift from opulence, from abundance, to relatively scarce, right? I wouldn't say that we were eating quite a bit of um, opulence. I wouldn't say that was nothing extravagant, like seafood every day, oysters and caviars. Not really, not really. But we were having great diet in terms of health and nutrition by the beginning of the month. My mom really cook well, and she cook with an intention to keep me healthy, and I'm very grateful for that. But with our limited resources, by the end of the month, we always resort to some simple food. I wouldn't say that I was never ever starving, but by the end of the month, I will probably eating something like fried rice with eggs in there, and a little bit cucumber and a little bit of sauce on top. Until nowadays, I will cook it. It's actually delicious. Uh, Only difference was back when my mom was cooking, there was a little bit more spring onion on the top, and that gave a little bit of actual spice and scent. Nowadays, I don't do it just because spring onion is so expensive. It's not poor people food in Estonia. Just for a little string of spring onion, it costs like €1 or two. Don't ask me. I don't know why. Same goes to sweet potato. Sweet potato used to be such a peasant food back home, and I still remember in the winter days, my parents would give me 1块钱, which is 1 yuan, 1 RMB. 1 RMB equals to, with nowadays conversion rate, that equals to about 15 cent euro cent, or 20 cent US cent. That's how much I paid for one baked sweet potato. Big. And they bake it on the street side. The street vendors will bake it inside of the oil barrel. I don't know if you know what I'm talking about. The crude oil barrel, and they cut a hole on the top, and they will bake it inside with coals. And it was supposed to be super cheap and warm you up. On the winter day, I'll just hold it in my hand on my walk to school with it. It warms up my hand a little bit, and once I get to school, I will eat it. Super cheap. But over here, sweet potato is a delicacy, and it costs quite a bit. At least triple the price, like compared to potato. But I guess it's the other way around, pricing-wise in China. I think it's way less expensive compared to potato. But yeah, by the end of the month, we would eat sweet potatoes. We will eat fried rice with eggs and spring onions on top. And occasionally we will go to my grandma's place, my grandma from my mother's side. We'll go to my grandma's place and we'll just eat over there for the last couple of days of the month for every meals of the day. And we'll come back to our own place to sleep off. And then go back again when it's mealtime. That just to get by, because we really didn't have a lot of money left by the end of the month. They tried their best to not make me feel that we were poor, but they were trying to. Here's the thing: they were super great parents, trying to shelter me away from poverty, about this lack of scarcity, lack of means. But I understand, especially in hindsight, nowadays, looking back, I understand how much financially they were struggling. And I remember just right before we met, this aunt of mine from Taiwan and her husband, we were going to this a lottery venue. It wasn't really a lottery that you buy online or at a specific spot, but it was a lottery event. I mean, at this place, there was thousands of people, an open court, filled with people. And there was a podium, some kind of a setup at the front of it. On top, there was a few cars, I believe, a dozen of cars, right? Not nice cars, domestically made Chinese cars that cost probably like nothing nowadays. But back then, it was a luxury. Nobody had cars. Nobody had private owned cars. And we went there, and that was the event where you can buy scratchers. There's little paper with little numbers on it, and you scratch it off with whatever you have, like a penny or whatever. And if you know how it works, right? If you get the numbers right, you get a car. That's a top prize, and then you get less and less as you have more and more number wrong. So everybody was aiming at having one of those cars. You can actually choose to have the car or have the money, the cash equivalent of that car. And I remember I was just dreaming, oh my God, I'm going to get this. I'm going to get that. I was manifesting. Even before this idea of manifesting was out there, I was manifesting to the universe that today I'm going to honor my family and I'm going to win them a car. If not one, two. If not two, three. Right? I was really going for that positive thinking. But as I was telling Alexandra about this story the other day, he was really suspicious, and she was saying, maybe this is a scam. It sounds like a scam. It sounds too good to be true. And in hindsight, I think it might have been a rigged game. And when I was at the event, whoa, there were so many sellers, so many resellers of the shop of the tickets of those scratchers, and you could buy it from a lot of different venues, a lot of small stands. And we're going around the place, and my parents were like, Which one are you feeling? Like I'm some kind of a lucky charm that would pick out the big prize. But well, we didn't win anything. I think we ended up spending the rest of the month's allowance and had to eat at my grandparents' place for many, many days. Um, but yeah, now think of it, that has been probably a rigged game because we saw the car getting driven off, and it was such a boost whenever some car got driven away. We're like, even more eager. Man, one last scratcher to get the car. So people got like a little bit of a panic attack, but with the excitement when the car get driven away from the stadium, from the podium up there. What a time! What a time! Yeah. Um, we didn't win the car, and we ended up spending a lot of days eating at my grandma's place. Nothing to complain. It was great food. I remember still remember having three bowls, full bowls of fried rice with eggs and spring onions on top over there. It was the most delicious thing ever. But yeah, I think my parents wasn't really proud about it because as we were taking our aunt and her husband around the country, we were on a train ride going out of the city to check out some countryside places with them. We were kind of like the local guide, taking them around, show them a good time. And I was really curious about them. So I told them about the story of us going for the scratcher event. And my mom was pulling my leg. I was hovering over the seat, behind them. And I was telling them about us going to this lottery event. And I was like so proud of it because it was kind of an interesting event for me. I didn't really get the embarrassment at all, neither for the lack of prize nor for the intention of winning the big prize. But my parents were obviously not really in the mood to share with somebody that we were trying to, score big with a desperate lottery win. So my mom was pulling my leg and telling me not to say it, and I didn't get the signals to just keep telling them, hey, that was we were at this event and it was so cool, and there was all kinds of like cars, and we didn't win it. I remember those two were super courteous. They were very polite people, and they were talking in their very different accented Chinese and their Mandarin, and then say something in the line of, "Oh, that's a pity," or some light commentary that doesn't really show much about what they think about the event, but just to show that they're courteous, super polite people. And I remember still until now, very sensory feeling when I'm around them. I really wanted to be close to them because they all smell so good, especially my aunt, this Taiwanese aunt, wearing perfume. Back then, nobody in me, like at least in my family or people that I get to interact with, nobody used any bodily perfume. Nobody was scented. Nobody go around smelling like a rose. No. But this aunt of mine, wow, smelling great. Again, if my memory serves me right, it was a very strong and potent kind of a rosy smell, flowery kind of a smell that nobody would use nowadays. It was potent. It was pungent. It was straight up to your brain through the nose. I think nowadays it wouldn't be in fashion. At least I don't think it would be. But back then, whoa, what a delight to be around this woman. Just kind of going around her and seeing her clothes, and I want to touch her clothes because they were always so ironed out and so nice and so clean. I loved it. Not to say we didn't wear clean clothes. We're clean people. My mom wash clothes all the time, but their clothes just look so brand new all the time. Maybe they did buy new clothes, but for me at least, growing up, I only remember getting new clothes for the Chinese New Year. Not just randomly going to the store like nowadays, going to H&M and be like, yeah, I might get a shirt. There's no random purchase when it comes to our fashion items back then. You gotta calculate if you buy this one shirt, which by the way, there weren't a lot of stores in my area back then, and there were definitely no online store. So it was a hassle to even get to a store. And if you do buy something from the store, you know what's coming. Those fried rice and eggs, man. So yeah, even for a kid who had no idea, limited idea about money, I know my Taiwanese relative, my Taiwanese aunt, and her husband were rich. They were loaded. I know that. They behave like rich people. I don't know how rich they are nowadays in hindsight. I don't know if they're still going to be that rich in my eyes if I see them now. But back then, they feel like royalties. They feel like they're wearing nice clothes. They go around. They were going to like when they get curious about stuff, they just pay. Like that's not how my brain works. When I see something I'm curious, I look at it and I walk away. But if they see some small items, some small things that they like, they'll be like, "Oh, so cute. How much is it? Here you go. Take my money. I keep the stuff." What a mind blowing experience on that road trip with them. We went out to the city. I remember I was babbling around all behind them the entire trip, probably bothering the shit out of them. But the entire time, not for a second, the aunt was not smiling. She was so smiling the entire time, just smiling and, just listening and nodding, not really reacting. Because even though I'm calling her aunt right now, we had never seen each other and never heard from her before nor after this, right? This is the only time I have seen her. She's as distant of a family member as me with Elon Musk. Just, for the sake of the argument. But, she was super polite to me. She was never, seemingly annoying. She was never trying to go away. She was always just listening and nodding and then smiling, right? Not so much coming back from her, but she was always courteous. That's that much I can remember. How much I can remember. And and yeah, like I remember the military uncle, the military uncle was the aunt's husband, right? I'm gonna call her uncle, the military uncle. Military uncle was telling me a lot about the things that was not really talked about at that time in China, about the events that happening from the Tiananmen Square, about things that weren't really allowed to talk about or people seldom talk about in public. He was telling us about what really happened in his perspective, or the kind of document he get to see, whatever, and this and that, and didn't really interest me. But my dad and my uncle, uh, which are my mom's brothers, older brothers, they were super interested. They were listening, and they were like, "Oh, so cool! A bit of a different story, but yeah, they get a comparison. They get to listen, and it was a good vibe. They were talking a lot about politics on the train. I remember I was like listening, like I'm a part of the conversation, but actually had no idea what was going on. Uh, yes, I I think they were really courteous. They were really polite people, and they talk a little bit funny. That was the first time, or at least like in real life, first time I ever heard people talking with a Taiwanese accent, Taiwanese Mandarin, I guess. Super super feminine of a sound as far as I can remember. It was very feminine, very soft toned, and very just a polite, high class kind of a feel to it, and admired it. Really like listening to them talking. I remember going to our family old house. My grandma's place was they were checking out. They were saying hi to my grandma, and I remember how I wonder how they feel about our place. I look at their surrounding, and it just doesn't look like it matches with their clothes, with their fancy shoes and whatever. I remember seeing them there, and I feel there's a gap. There's an invisible space between them and the surroundings, and they're not blending in there. They just look like they weren't from there. I fit right in. My parents fit right in. My grandma fit right in, but not them. You can tell they were not from there. Something was telling you, nah, 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 they're from somewhere else. It was a super interesting visit. I remember it for many, many years to come. But the thing is they never came back. I don't really know what happened. My mom did know a little bit. I guess it's also like I don't know how many hands of exchange has happened before my mom got the information or and her impression. But At least she told us that they figured that there were nothing they can do with a mentally challenged brother, so they don't really want to come back anymore. They can't really help out that much, but they were sending money to him. They were sending money to him regularly, every month, every quarter. I don't know how often, but was my side of the family. I guess there are my grandma and my mom and us, or all this extended family. For them, they don't really see the value of like they don't really see a point of I guess like keep talking to us or having a communication going on with us. There was no there was nothing in there for them. You see what I mean? We can't provide value. It was just average people. My mom and my dad worked in a factory, a state-owned company making trains. What's that to do with our life? Nothing much, right? You can talk about politics, about what happened in a train ride to the countryside, but besides that, they had very little thing in common to talk about, at least from their side, I guess. So they never came back. I never get to see them again. But until nowadays, I remember that potent, flowery smell, perfume from my extended, I guess, aunt from Taiwan. And after that, for many years, I didn't see anybody from Taiwan. Not a tourist, not nobody, not relatives, nobody. And the next time I get to see a person from Taiwan was when I turned 21, and that was when I was in Japan, and I was doing my study. And in my university, University of Tsukuba, we get to quite meet quite a bit of Taiwanese. There was a lot of them in Japan. They were going to school there. I think it was one of the biggest demographic behind Chinese and Koreans. There were a lot of people from Taiwan. And I remember there was this one kid in our class. Um, there were several departments that had students studying fully in English, at least in University of Tsukuba. We had this program called Global 30. It was an initiative to invite foreign students to come to study in Japan in some top universities. And to make it easier of a transition, both academically and living wise, they made all the courses. They deliver all the courses in English instead of the traditional Japanese route, where if that was the case, you would have to go to a language school. If you had no previous knowledge of Japanese, you'll have to go to a language school, study diligently for a couple of years, and then enroll, pass some exams with Japanese kids, and enrolled in a Japanese conducted program. However, our program, because it was fully in English, you don't really need to learn Japanese. You can go along the way, which was exactly how we did it, right? So in our school, there were three programs that invited foreign students and directly can enroll in English. That is a biology department, study bioscience and whatever, and the medicine science that enrolls students, only transfer students from the third year. So you have to finish 2 years in your home country, home university, and then do the last 2 years for the degree over here in Tsukuba. And then there is a humanity and social science department where I was a part of, and I study international relations, which is a bullshit title. Let's just say I would call it liberal arts because you can pretty much study anything that is that is even, yeah, you can study pretty much everything in sociology and social science and humanity. Anything that has anything to do with social science and humanity, that was my major. Very random selection of courses, so I wouldn't really call it international relations now. But I guess there was a lot of politics, about regional politics in Asia. So yeah, I got an international relations degree, and in my degree, there was a senior that was a year ahead of me, was from Taiwan, and his name, at least his English name, was Frederick, but nobody call him Frederick. It's just Fred, right? So Fred was from Taiwan. Fred wore glasses. Fred was a little bit shorter, a little bit chubbier than me. But Fred was from Taiwan, and yeah, Fred was finishing up school. The first time I met him was in a seminar. We were having a management seminar for the thesis work with our professor called Martin Paul, and we were doing it in the national, not national, in Tsukuba University's central library. And we had a room reserved every week. On Wednesday afternoon, we'll gather together, and for 1.5 hours, we'll talk about the readings we did for the previous week and talk about our opinion about the reading material. And when it comes to the time to write the thesis, we also share with the colleagues and classmates how we have progressed with progressed with our writing. So in this specific course seminar, I have encountered the second or the third, I guess, Taiwanese of my life, Fred. Fred was kind of quiet. Fred didn't talk that much. Fred actually didn't give a shit about the seminar. Fred go to the seminar because it was a compulsory compulsory course that he had to finish to get the degree. And I'm not saying this out of impression. I'm saying this out of direct quotation. He was telling me, and probably somebody else as well, that, oh man, I had to come to this bullshit. Gotta do this. Gotta finish this. And the entire time when he was present in the class, he was probably always on his phone. Either typing on his phone, or head on the table, taking a snooze. It wasn't really a big classroom. I would say it's a seminar room. Seminar, small. Less than 10 people, at the maximum 10 people. And we're circling around in a big, meeting table. If you're, on the table, taking a snooze like this, or playing on your phone, typing, everybody can see you. Not only I can see you, the teacher can see you. Our professor, the professor I did my thesis work with, Martin. Super nice of a guy. Super polite. Never really commented on his behavior before he got super angry with his behavior. All right? I mean, I have never seen him scold at anybody, but there was one time that Fred was just non-stop texting the entire 1.5 hour. And finally, Martin has to stop him and be like, you know what, Fred, I think you're not really with us right now. But, just if you really don't want to be here, you don't have to. You can send me the material that you have, the impression you had about the reading, and send me the coursework, and you don't have to be here. It was not like one of those negative comment or a passive-aggressive one. He was sincerely not taking this well. He really doesn't want him to be there because that kind of behavior, not nice. It was a stark contrast from Japanese students. They were very diligent. They were pretty much always paying attention, at least paying the respect to the teacher in the classroom. Not so many people would blatantly take out a phone and start typing. That's not tolerated. Just like you can't really blatantly take out a roll of like a donuts roll and start biting on it. You can't do that in a Japanese university. You can hide it. You can try to hide it under the table. People do it. I see people eating ramen noodle in classroom. But you gotta hide it. You gotta make an effort. But Fred didn't make an effort. Fred just looked disinterested the entire time. And we rarely get to talk because I didn't feel like I had a lot to relate to him at that time. Fred didn't look like a person I had a lot to do with, to be honest. We had a few short exchange here and there, but I remember I was getting into fitness at that time. I was doing a lot of workout with another friend from Uzbekistan called Barak. Shout out to Barak. He got me into doing fitness, lifting, and I remember I was super into it. I go every day, do at least 1.5 hours in the gym. And when I'm not doing that, I'm reading about nutrition, reading about how to take protein powder right. What is a anabolic window where I can gain the most amount of muscle, right? So super obsessed with the bodybuilding stuff. And besides that, I was just reading a lot of stuff on my own. I was watching a lot of YouTube video because I didn't have YouTube before in Japan. I watched so much YouTube video, and I started making my own video as well. So all my attention divided into all the directions: making YouTube videos, reading and then bodybuilding. But Fred was, as my conversation with him goes, limited amount of conversation I had with him goes, he was really interested in computer games and Japanese idol groups. Are those Japanese idol group? I don't really know how to describe them, but if you want to get an idea, go Google AKB48 and you should have a good idea. It's a bunch of Japanese girls dressed up in high school uniform or something that is even more, even even younger than that, and then performing in front of adult audience, dancing and singing. So yeah, that was the things that Fred was into. AKB48, computer games, and I feel like we didn't really have anything in common, and we didn't get to talk a lot. However, there was one time that we were waiting for the seminar to start. I was sitting right next to Fred, and we get to talk a little bit. And somehow I told him that I studied for a year in Suzhou University, which used to be Dongwu University, and that was a university that was very prominent, not in China anymore, but in Republic of China time. Before 1945, university was very prominent of an institution in mainland China, and it had it has when the Republicans, I guess, ROC went to Taiwan, they took the faculty from that school and they all went there and they started the school over there new. So it was still called Dongwu University over there. And now we have a Dongwu University in China, in mainland as well. Our university, however, changed name and now it's called Suzhou University. The same name, Suzhou, as in the city where it was located, where it is located. So I attended that school for a year before going to Italy and going to Japan and all that. I was majoring German over there. So I just randomly, somehow, this came to the conversation, and Fred was like, yeah, that was school we have in Taiwan as well. And as I told him, yeah, we had a really good law department. He was like, yeah, it's the same like in Taiwan. It's great. And I don't know. It wasn't like when you say something like this, like everything is the same. Like, oh, you have this and we have the same stuff. It wasn't a moment that I can feel like I connected to him or something I can relate to him with. Not really. It was. It just feels like it doesn't matter what we can talk about, no matter. Even though the entire time we're talking Chinese, we're talking Mandarin, and there was a Vietnamese girl who was just like sitting across a table, across a desk from us, and listening to us talking. I was like, "Oh, you guys talking in Mandarin?" And I was like, "Yeah." Like it wasn't a bonding moment, you know. Like I didn't feel like I was closer to Fred, just because of the fact that we speak the same language. It was cool. It was kind of a interesting experience that we get to talk in Japan, in a German professor seminar, in front of a Vietnamese classmate, talking in Mandarin Chinese, while I'm Chinese and he identifies Taiwanese. It's kind of a bizarre kind of a situation, I would say. Interesting. However, I didn't feel related to him. Not a single bit. I feel as distant as possible with the person with Fred. I didn't feel like he was my brother. I didn't feel like we had the same lineage. I didn't feel like somehow I connect to him. I don't know. I didn't feel for him, you know? It's been 54 minutes. Man, neck getting sore now. We never talk about politics. You know, I never asked Fred, how do you feel about China? How do you feel about Taiwan and China relationship with mainland China? What do you feel about it? I never ask. Like I don't really care, to be honest. Not that I don't care about the relationship. I do have an agenda, which I'm not gonna I'm not going to tell you about it. but I'm not going to tell anybody about it. I think it's none of anybody's business, and I'm not curious about your stance on the situation. Um, I'm simply not interested in the topic, particularly with Fred. I mean, whatever he has to say, he can scream out like, "Let Taiwan be a part of China." I wouldn't be less interested about his opinion because it simply doesn't matter to me. So I never asked. I never had a conversation with him, and about this thing, and neither did he wanted to start the same discussion, and I was happy it was kept that way, because I really don't see the point. People oftentimes I don't want to get pressured into talk about anything. I don't want to put pressure on anybody else, making them feel like they have to talk about certain thing with me. Not really. You don't have to if you don't want to, especially if you don't want to. But yeah, that's my second encounter with Taiwanese people. Very brief, very non in depth, and kind of a random one, I would say. There was quite a lot of Taiwanese students in my class, not in my class, in my university, but I never had a close encounter with them. They were doing their own thing. I guess they were participating in university life, but whenever I see them, I don't really see a particular a reason to go out of my way and to make myself familiarized to them. Like, there was no need. I had my bunch of friends um, from all over the place. There were Canadians, there were Maltese, there were Americans, the Chinese, there were Japanese, all over the place. All right, like, during my immediate circle, and it was a great time. But I just simply didn't find the reason, or I didn't find the kind of the compelling feeling to go out and connect with somebody from Taiwan. Neither did I feel the same way about Chinese, to be honest. I didn't go out and find Chinese friends like, whoa, there were so many Chinese students. Crazy. You can always hear Chinese talking, but never feel the need. But yeah. And the next time I saw a Taiwanese I get to talk to, it's in Tallinn. Next time I see a Taiwanese kid, it's in Tallinn. And we work in the same company for a while before I quit. I saw him in the My Fitness. It's a gym that we have over here in Tallinn. It's a chain, and we have like branches all over the place throughout the city, both in Tallinn and Tartu and some smaller city as well. And I saw him in one of the most central locations in Tallinn, in Postimaya, which is right next to the kind of big intersections in the middle of the town in Tallinn. And I was working out, and he was working out. He was doing some like back pulls and whatever, lateral pulls. And I was doing bicep curl, as always. And I just went up to him because he looked Chinese, right? I don't really know what that means, but he looks like he could be Chinese. I went up to him, had the earphone in his ear. I took out mine, and I said, "Hey, are you Chinese?" I asked that in Chinese, and he said, "No, I'm Taiwanese." Wasn't offended. I didn't really even notice that. I wasn't offended by that. I said, "Oh, cool." Then I started having a conversation in Chinese, in Mandarin, and I was asking what he was doing, and stuff like that. Just had a short, brief conversation, I guess. Then later, I found out we were working in the same company. We didn't really ask details as well, like which exact company we were working at, but later I saw him in the office, and then we had a workout together after seeing each other in the office, and we work out a little bit. He was telling me a bit about. He was very scientific, when it comes to workout. That's the thing I noticed about the dude. He was very, very meticulous about the forms. I'm more like going in there and just rip it out, right? I want to do some was good form, and if I can't do it, I struggle to do a few. Like, my last 3 reps forms are just hideous. They can't really be seen. They're not supposed to be seen by anybody but myself and my painful lower back. But this guy, he was very meticulous about the movement, right? Very down to earth, very, very, very sensitive, very meticulous and particular about movements, right? Whenever I'm doing like the ladder pull down with a cable, and he was telling me, "Oh, you're supposed to squeeze that a little bit more, be careful, tuck it under the shoulder, tuck it here." And then later when we're doing some like bent over pull, and it was like, "Yeah, you're supposed to feel like this." It's like putting that into the putting the dumbbell into the pocket, putting the dumbbell into the pocket. As I was doing every rep, he was like putting it into the pocket, putting it into the pocket. And, that really helped, that really helped a lot. You can really see with a reminder, you really see that what you're doing, be more conscious with that movement. Because sometimes your mind wanders away, especially in terms of like in time of hardship, when you're exerting a lot of power, a lot of strength, doing strength training, your head easily wanders away or lose focus. But when he was telling me to do that, like I was just, yeah, put it in the pocket, put it in the pocket. It was a super interesting experience, super interesting. I think that's the time that I started decided, you know what, I'm going to be a personal trainer. I'm going to be more mindful about the form. I'm going to be more mindful about other people's form and helping them with their forms because I really see the benefit. Before that, I have been largely training by myself. And even in those occasions I was training with somebody else, that I was never reminded of the form, or probably just like ego lifting the entire time, especially with somebody else. Everybody's like, let's bench 120. I can't bench 120 now. I can do clean 100 off a bench, but 120, I don't think so. But with this Taiwanese dude, we were able to just like be more chill. There was no sense of competition. He was really helpful with it, and I feel the same way about helping him out. Trying to watch out for his point of exertion. So when he was doing the pull, I'll be tapping my finger onto the area that the muscle is supposed to exerting power and telling him focus on this point. And I think we both kind of learned a lot from this experience. Again, there was no exchange about um, the politics. I don't think we talked anything about the politics. He asked me if I have been to Taiwan. I said never been there, but yeah, you know what? Think about it. I do want to go to Taiwan. Right now is the time of the pandemic, but I do want to go check it out. I've heard a lot of stuff, good things about the place. I've seen some great food. I don't know anything about the place pretty much. I want to see their museum. I know they have shipped a lot of like precious items, culture items from the mainland and kept it in their national museum. And I want to go check it out, right? Good food, good culture, and I want to see what it's like, I really have limited idea about the place. I want to see for myself. It might be interesting. It's tropical, it's very warm. People always people outside of China who are not from the area always confuse it with Thailand, but it's different. It's a small island nation. It's nice. I have a great feeling about Ireland. I don't know. Japan's island, I liked it. Iceland was island, I liked it. New Zealand was island, super big, liked it. Taiwan, I don't know. I hope I get to talk to more people from Taiwan. I really do hope so. Like, I think the more I get to talk to them, the more I'll have a better understanding about the place. Not only from the book, from the history books, from the politics books that I have been reading, and all the stuff, and the Western media's ideas about what is China, what is Taiwan. I want to see something like with my own eyes, right? I want to actually talk to them. I want to know what's up. All right, I'm gonna stop it right here. But yeah, I'll see you in the next time. I'll see you in the next one in a week. Never off the boat. Ironically, I found out on a boat, on like an actual boat, I get seasick very easily. But never off the metaphorical boat. Have a good day. Bye bye.